Okay, so welcome to Value Pricing. For those of you who don't know me, that is myself, and I am Tanya Hiltz, CPB, so that's Certified Professional Bookkeeper, and I'm the founder of Cloud Bookkeeping Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. So a little bit about myself professionally. I was most recently nominated or made the list of the top 21 influencers in the Canadian bookkeeping world for 2018. I was also voted by my peers as an Insightful Accountant Top 100 Pro Advisors. So thank you if there's anybody here who voted for me. I was also a HubDoc Top 40 Cloud Accounting Firm for 2017, an Intuit Firm in the Future runner-up for 2017, Black Swan alumni, Futurepreneur Canada volunteer mentor. I'm a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network. I am a member of the Intuit All-Star QuickBooks community, which is just where I'm answering questions on the QuickBooks Online community. So if you've ever typed any questions there, I may be one of the people that's responding to you. We are also Platinum Pro Advisor Firm, Advanced Certified QBO, Certified in QB Desktop, Certified in many apps, HubDoc, T-Sheets Pro, and more. A certified professional bookkeeper with over 20 years bookkeeping and income tax experience. A little bit about myself personally. There's just some pictures. I actually love family experiences, and of course these are experiences with my family. Some of you may recognize some of those are celebrities, a couple Canadian bands. My daughter and I have a lot of the same interests, so we like to experience a lot of the same things together, and again, like once in a lifetime type experiences, which as you can see are a few more than once in a lifetime. And I've started learning American Sign Language. And of course, there's my dog, Rosie, and there's my family, myself, my husband, and my daughter. So that's me personally. So my bookkeeping story, or not necessarily my bookkeeping story, but my value pricing story. So I chose to specialize in QuickBooks Desktop initially, as my niche was the small entrepreneur, and QuickBooks seemed to be more targeted to my market. I reactively started supporting QBO in 2012, just simply due to the demand of some of my clients, but I used it like the desktop product. So I spent the next year focusing on learning all about cloud accounting, apps, value pricing, and how I could transform my practice from data entry to data management. I implemented everything I learned and tripled my sales within a year and on target to double again this year. That's actually outdated information. I did double that second year. We're kind of slowing the growth down a little bit this year, so I don't know necessarily if we're going to double, but there is room for growth, absolutely. Clients liked what I offered, and like-minded clients began to spread the word. It freed up more time to be able to utilize all that was now accessible to me to help them grow their businesses. And I refound the passion, as let's face it, what we do is mostly data entry, or what we did is mostly data entry, and that's not what I was passionate about. I became an Intuit-sponsored Black Swan in 2016, which is mentoring under Ron Baker in the IPBC Black Swan program. And my practice has now grown from just me to myself and 3 employees, and I can work anywhere where there's internet. So although I chose QuickBooks products, that was just my tool of choice, and the value pricing formula that I'm discussing today can be used with any accounting software package, traditional, desktop, or cloud-based. However, when you use compatible cloud-based software and integrate the apps and time-saving tips that I reviewed today, you'll be so much more efficient and substantially increase your bottom line. So why value price? With hourly billing, we're penalized for our increased experience, being faster at processing, our increased knowledge, having more certifications, being experts in our fields, leveraging the current technology, offering the client more value, and coming up with custom individual solutions for each client. If we're employees and we come up with any of the above, we get rewarded with raises and bonuses and whatnot. And I like to call value pricing right sizing. It's the right client with the right solutions for the right price. And right sizing is a win-win situation. What the client gains is agreeing in advance as to what solutions we will provide to them. agreeing in advance the price that they are willing to pay for these solutions. And we can also teach the client to right price their own services, which increases the value that we provide as that becomes more of a consulting services to them. With right sizing, we gain agreeing in advance what solutions we provide, agreeing in advance what price that our clients will pay for our services. We now know what our monthly recurring revenue will be. We're being paid in advance for our work, and that gives us more incentives for us to gain more certifications and leverage the most current software and to complete the work in the agreed upon time frame, as we're no longer penalized for our speed. So anyone can right size using any software. Right sizing could work if you're using any desktop software. However, as I said earlier, by leveraging the most current cloud technology, you can increase your productivity while decreasing the time you're working on the file, all while still charging the same fixed rate as the client is still obtaining the agreed upon outcome. The whole idea behind this concept is to have the client focus on the outcome rather than how long it takes you to achieve the desired results. So what tools do I use and how do I use them? So I use QBO as my main accounting software. I personally use 17 Hatch for my quotes, contracts, workflows, and automatic emails. HubDoc to pull bank statements and have clients submit receipts via mobile app. They can snap the pics or email forward. I do as well use Receipt Bank. I obviously need to update this part of it. Receipt Bank I use for some clients now that they've got a fixed pricing. It's something that we're just starting to bring back in for some of our clients. So we still have HubDoc to pull the bank statement, but some clients we can sort a little bit more and again use a little bit more of the automation that Receipt Bank has to offer that works better with some of our clients. I use Rotessa for pre-authorized withdrawal. Pluto also offers pre-authorized withdrawal. We offer options, payment options of the 1st or the 15th of the month, and we collect advance payments. I also use Invoice Sherpa, so that can send as well as follow up on my AR. And I use it for about 15% of my grandfather clients as well as all my tax clients. And I also use it to offer AR packages to my clients as part of my plan options for them. So sometimes saving cloud accounting software features are bank rules. So you can automatically set rules such as bank fees, interest charges, automatic loan payments, and daily merchant deposits for clients with a non-integrating POS or old-fashioned till, and offset these against the monthly sales receipts. So I think it's important to note here that although I do know some people who use bank rules for almost everything, I only use bank rules for something that I will not receive a receipt for. I am huge on government compliance. No receipt means they don't get to claim it. So I'm only, again, using it for some of those items that I have there, so that way I can keep the client in compliance at the same time. And recurring transactions. So for recurring items, I can do templates for frequently used journal entries, which I try not to use often. Example, manual payroll when external software use, or for anything that might be a little bit more of a complex that I just want to have it for time saving. Might be a more complex invoice with several lines. I can just set that up, use that as recurring, so that way I'm just literally filling in the numbers if it's the same month over month over month. Again, for a client that might have, a non-integrating POS or an old-fashioned till. So what do we take a look at when we take a look at value pricing? So we need to educate the client. We need to educate them on the value that we're providing and that they're receiving. We actually should be able to give them options as well. We need to take into account our software costs, our time, and yes, I will show you how to be able to do that without using the time clock. And that will let us know what our profitability is, which will let us know our bottom line. So Ron Baker suggests in his book, Implementing Value Pricing, that you value the following items based on the following percentages. There's hours times base rate. And again, I will show you how to do all of this. The fixed price should be 10 to 20%. It is valuable to clients to know exactly what they're going to pay for their bookkeeping. That way they can budget. So there's not going to be any more higher end of month bills, or if you didn't get a chance to work on their bill, their file for 2 months, all of a sudden, invoice them a large bill because you did some catch up work because you got backed up during tax season. None of that has any impact because again, you need to be focused on have the client focused on their outcome.
What is the 10% to 20% annual? What does it mean?
Okay, so that is the value percentage surcharge. So basically, you're surcharging the client. So you're taking your hours times your base rate, and you're giving them a surcharge. So, and I'll again go through all of that when I actually demo the template and how I do that. So change orders, you should be putting in a 5 to 10% surcharge for the client. So your change orders is something that they might need that will take more time, but that is not something that is standard. So rather than charging, again, extra for that, you're just building in a little bit of a buffer. So that way, whenever some minor stuff comes through, you can do that. Now, I would never use that for a full-fledged audit, but maybe if they've got a little review, an HST review, and it's a basic review. I mean, they're asking for a full listing of their ITCs and their sales, and maybe their top 10 receipts. We can pull that out very quickly in QBO. We can access the information we need to pull that out. So therefore, because of that, I wouldn't charge anything extra for that. It's just built in, and I know that the price has that fluctuation for smaller things like that. If it was a more in-depth audit or review, absolutely, I would do a separate change order agreement for that, which is just basically your ad hoc or a one-off agreement for that with a separate price, just dealing for that. But again, the small stuff, we can do that because we know we've got a buffer in there. A value guarantee, oops, sorry, got a little excited there. So value guarantee, so 15 to 30% for a value guarantee. So we're all offering this now, whether you think you are or you're not sure, you probably are offering this. And that's, of course, if the client's not satisfied with it, you're going to fix it. Not that they're not satisfied with something that you don't have control over, but if they're not satisfied with something that you did, you're going to go back and you're going to fix that at no charge. And I'd say that a lot of us are doing that right now because, of course, we're more worried about the customer service side of things and the customer loyalty. Well, if you buy something from Best Buy, you walk in, if you want a guarantee on that, you're going to pay more. There are, these days people are charging more for your CRA insurance, your guarantee that they'll help with that. There's absolutely almost everybody out there is charging. We've been giving it away for free. So that is valuable to people to know that they will be taken care of and that you're going to honor your agreement and your word to make sure that they're taken care of, with the highest integrity. So that is worth 15 to 30%. Payment terms, 5 to 10%. Now, this could be meaning just, allowing them a little bit of flexibility on the payments. You need to be able to cover any merchant costs if you're allowing them credit card or for a PAD, a pre-authorized debit from their bank account. You need to make sure you've got your costs covered for that. But as well, this could mean maybe get a little creative. If you've got a client who maybe does more work, their landscaping business, so they do more in the summer, a little bit in the winter, they actually have the bulk of their sales and their income coming in through the summer. You could then say to them, okay, instead of just, divided by 12 months, we're going to take this and divide this into, 6 months. So that way you pay through the 6 months you're making money. I'm still going to do your books and deal with everything in the other months, but we're taking care of flexible payment terms that satisfies, that client and works better for them. So clients will definitely pay more. So for that type of flexibility, there should be a charge as well. Unlimited access, 10 to 20%. This sounds scary. It sounded scary to me when Ron first told me. And I said, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I will spend all of my time with these clients. I won't be able to bring on new clients. I can't do this unlimited access. And Ron said, trust me, just trust me. So I did. And he was right. With the right client at the right price, it's not a big deal. Um, that'll be a little bit more when you onboard them. But after that, I've got some clients that if I'm not reaching out to them, I might not talk to them for several months just because everything is going so smoothly and they don't need me. So if you've got the right client on the right plan and priced right, this is not a concern. There is a client, I'll give a little anecdote right now, he was priced wrong, just simply because he wanted to continue to push and push and push and push. And we were actually working almost double the time on his file because of everything he was questioning. So what we did when it came up for renewal, we basically doubled the price and restricted him. And we said, okay, if you email us, if you call us anything that is not urgent, and there's really nothing that can be urgent in bookkeeping, we will deal with payroll every second week on the Monday. Here are your deadlines with that. And otherwise, we will deal with the rest of your file on Wednesday mornings. So he has been very well told that if he emails, it'll go into a separate email folder and we'll deal with it at that point in time. So by adding those restrictions into the contract and letting him know this is the only way we can price it this, if he wants more flexibility, we would have to price accordingly. So I did give him several options, and some of those options did include definitely more flexibility with regards to getting back to him and answering his questions. He actually has really reined himself in. It has worked just great, and we no longer have let's say 99% no longer have any of the issues with him trying to get all this extra work done. And he actually emails a lot less, just simply because he knows that it's kind of been restricted a little bit in the contract. But otherwise, if he does want to take more advantage of that, that will increase his time. So again, if you've got the client priced right and on the right plan, this is not something that is a huge concern. You need to take into account your apps and your add-ons. And you calculate your hours from the balance sheet, and I'll show you how to do that. And then there's a gut price. So with all of this together, it means that you're actually valuing your expertise anywhere from 45 to 90% and charging an appropriate surcharge for this. So I was able to come up with a formula that did that. So woo. And that was because that's a lot to take in. It's a lot. I mean, I have definitely determined that value pricing is definitely more of a skill. And again, I need a formula. Ron, he thinks I'm crazy. We've agreed to disagree. He doesn't really need that. It doesn't really believe it should be as formulated as it is. It is the only way I can wrap my head around it and come up with it. And I've been quoting this way for, I don't know, 2 and a bit years anyway, and it's not failed me at all. So we're going to go into a bit of a demo on the quote here, and I'll show you what I've come up with and how I actually work it. So this is what I came up with as a template. I'll just do a quick brief run through of the sheets and then we'll just dig right in. So here's a client sheet. This is just basically, 3 plans. When I started this, I actually used to print this out and give to the clients. I don't anymore. I do that through 17 Hats, but I still kind of keep this as just a visual to me so that I can see, okay, here's my silver, gold, and my Cadillac, and I do have just kind of some basic stuff in here, as to what might be included in each plan. Again, because I am very familiar with this, I really don't pay too much attention to any of this stuff anymore. It's just these 3 numbers on top. We've got our worksheet, which is where we count our points. So we're all women here. So I'm sure we've all heard of Weight Watchers. It's very similar to that. Instead of calorie counting, you're point counting. Instead of, tracking your hours, you're point counting. So it's same thing here. Your rate sheet, this is where we put all the important information, our prices, and then client quotes. I don't use this, but it's still in here just in case there is anybody who's got the template who wants to use it. I just basically used to put the client information in here and any like their price I came up and any details that I came into it, maybe the number of points or, what apps I used or anything like that. These days, I will just actually take a print out of this and just make my notes on this sheet. All right, so when we're going through, so first off, we'll kind of go through, there's a couple of fixed and value pricing tips that I'll go through, and then we'll dig right in. So these rates are built so that they're in the middle of Ron's suggested value surcharges, which is 75%. It is recommended that, or I recommend anyway, that you've got a leniency of about 15% either way based on how you perceive the client values your services. I also recommend that your walkaway price is no less than 15% off of the recommended price plans, because once you start to dip below that level, you actually essentially end up lowering your hourly rate. And, there is a point where you'd actually make more if you build hourly. So there's really no price or point to the value or fixed pricing. And if you walk away with anything from here, only one thing, walk away with this. Do not price the lead when you are with them. Make sure that you price them separately. Set up an appointment time with them for the next day to make sure that you're comfortable with the amount that you're quoting them and have all taken all the information into account. Every single person I've quoted face to face, they've ended up negotiating back. I wasn't prepared, and I end up dropping my rate because I really didn't know where to go. When I price them price them the next day, I've got 24 hours, and I treat it like a board meeting. So I build myself up. I think of what are their objectives? How can I negotiate with them with their objectives without negotiating my price? So I negotiate on services. But I've already got that, and I have stuff in my back pocket. So you wouldn't walk into a board meeting without being prepared and treat this the same. And I know out of the two of the girls on here, they can speak up if they want. I know I've stressed this, and I know they've seen the differences between and can definitely speak that.
Oh,
I think that,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, doing this, and like you said, never ever say anything at the meeting and go back to this because it was a huge difference.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
And you have
agree.
said, yeah, you were the
Yeah,
same thing when you
yeah,
did from one to
oh
the
yeah,
other. Absolutely.
oh yeah. It makes a
Yeah,
huge difference.
it does. And it's so simple, but none of us have thought about it. I hadn't thought about it until
No.
I actually started, and Ron said that to me, and I'm like, it is such um, a simple solution, but I never thought about that preparing for it like a board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so if the client wants to negotiate further, negotiate the services, have them do more, or take services out of the package. Um, and the client might not value the services that you offer, so review what it is that you're providing to them and what's important to them. So for that, make sure that you do have, a very valuable or thorough onboarding, or not even an onboarding, but like a courting process. So I have a two-stage questionnaire process. Then I talk to them over the phone. I want to make sure that I understand exactly what it is they're looking for so that I can build these custom plans and be able to know what it is that's important to them. And sometimes I'm wrong with that with my assessment. So that's why I take a step back and maybe say, okay, what is it? Is there something in there that's not valuable? Maybe you might have included something that's not of importance to them, and by just simply switching it around to something that would take you the same time or of the same value to you, you could be increasing the value to them. So
Um,
definitely
I
negotiate with that.
I'd like to share something here. I went through this process, and what happens is that if the client doesn't provide the right information, then you go to them with a wrong or not fit suggestion. So I
Right.
went through this process based on the questionnaire and questions that I asked, but for whatever reason, he did not provide the right answer. So when I met with them, I got an entirely different picture, which was a huge flag for me. So I ended up dropping them because I wasn't sure, I couldn't trust them, and I wasn't sure like which way they're going and how things gonna, change all along the way. So it's and sometimes I use Tanya I'm using your 17 hats workflow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and questionnaire. So I asked them if they're willing to share their information. And if they say no, it kind of a flag also. Like, I understand that this is very, personal, confidential information. They don't like to just, share it around with everybody. But at some point of time, they have to, because sometimes their perception of what is it involved in doing those tasks is very different than it actually, takes to do them. So
Right.
it's just like I guess you can witness that, like, as you do it more often, you kind of become more experienced and learn, how to maneuver around, different turn that they take.
Right, right. So, Rocio, just to kind of bring you in, so what Afsana is actually kind of referring to within the process that I've gone is there's at one point in the process that basically, if they accept the quote, I actually do not take them on as a client until I can confirm it. And so that's by asking them to provide me with a copy of their financials and 3 months of their credit card or bank statements. And if they say no to that, that's what she's saying is there's a flag. Now, of course, I'm not going to ask them. I do let them know if they want, for me to be able to like basically confirm the price up front. They can provide that up front. I don't care if they say yes or no to that at that point, but I will not actually go ahead and have them sign into an agreement without that because if they have not provided the right and for the accurate information, maybe it was, they didn't realize, or maybe it was on purpose to try to get a lower price. But that's a lot of work to go into, start to onboard somebody to find out after the fact. So I will not take somebody on. And if they say no, they will not provide that information. That's where the red flags come up. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya, do you
Yeah,
also
Excuse me.
oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
Rosia, go ahead.
Do you also ask like how many invoices they produce, sales, that type of thing? Because that would also become transactional, not just your bank statements.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is part of it, and that's actually part of the value price, like how I come up with a price as well. Absolutely.
So is that in your spreadsheet also, like how many invoices, or is it just how many bank statements or credit card statements you need to
No, there's
reconcile?
there's like there's a number of receipts to process, and
Yeah.
it depends.
Okay.
If I'm processing the invoicing side for them, then definitely I'm going to ask for that. Yeah, but we'll get into that
Okay. Thank
when
you.
we dig in more. But absolutely, it's all in there. Yep. Okay. Sorry, Nafsana, you were going to say.
No, I was just going to add to it that, like, it makes when they don't provide the right information and don't allow you to see any of their documentation, then you can't budget your time properly, and you might just, completely lose on that contract because you put in too much time, which you didn't expect it, and not even come up with the right work because you didn't budget the time for it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Now, I do have, of course, which you guys know in the contracts, I have an escape clause in there. And of course, that escape clause is we can get out of the contract, within, I think it's 10 days in there as long as I give 10 days notice. And of course, it's, that this is based just on this. So there's definitely, several ways that we can get out of that. That one client who it did end up taking double, I chose not to because I wanted to keep that relationship at that point because he was definitely at that point I thought was going to be a great source of referrals. Turns out he wasn't such a great source of referrals, but so I chose to bite the bullet and just continue on at that. But it definitely make sure that you build in into your agreements some type of escape clause and whatnot. So if it's yeah, so that way you've got yourself covered and you're not forced to sit there and do that work. That way it can just be your choice if you want to, or if you want to, change the price because of it, because they've provided with incorrect information. You can, up the price accordingly. So as long as that wording is all in your agreements, you've got yourself covered. And then it's just a matter of your choice. How do you want to go ahead versus you being forced to go ahead, which I think really makes a difference. Um, it really makes a difference in the relationship that you have with that client too. I mean, last thing you want is to end up working with a client that you absolutely dread working with. So, okay. So, and then not everyone will value what you do. You need to determine your minimum and stick with it. Now, I'm going to do another anecdote here, and hopefully this will definitely let you guys know, I guess, the seriousness of this. So, I have one of my best friends who best friends since grade 10. Our kids are, born, 2 months apart, not by choice, or sorry, not by design. But our kids, are very good friends. So, we actually even have the same last name. We're not related, but we have the same last name. So her boyfriend at the time was starting a taxi business. So I gave, a lot of free advice. I mean, because we've been friends for, you know, like 30 years, over 30 years anyway. So I gave him a lot of free advice, helped him set things up and whatnot, told him basically what to do. And then she called and she says, okay, Tanya, she says, I know we don't want to deal with the government, whatnot. I want a price for what you do. So I went through, I gave her a price. I, worked it out. I discounted it down severely because we were friends. I didn't necessarily want to make a lot of money off it. And I gave her the price and she actually, and I think it was like 300 or something a month. Now, keep in mind his income, gross income, was 7,500 a month. His net was 3,500 a month. So his business was definitely doing good, and that was without him even driving. So he definitely had a good business. Could definitely have afforded 300 a month on bookkeeping. She actually laughed at me and said, Tanya, that's ridiculous. All you do is key in numbers or add numbers, I think was her actual wording. And I was like, wow.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Ouch.
exactly it. And this is one of my best friends who knows what I do. And the funny thing is, with what she does, she actually works uh, in a field where her services are billed out at like 100 and some odd dollars an hour. And yeah, she's in the medical field, and I was just like, wow. So I said, okay, and I came down to 250, and I said, like, that's my minimum. Otherwise, you can do it yourself. And he's actually gone into business since. But it was right then and there that I realized if one of my best friends doesn't understand and value what I do, there's no way that I could expect clients who don't know me and who don't know what I do to be able to do that. And that was a really important lesson because I used to negotiate a lot more um, until I learned that. So, like I say, it was kind of a hard lesson to learn,
Mhm.
but I learned that. So, every single quote that I give, I know what my minimum is. This is where Ron and I disagree. He agrees, he feels that you should be going, what is the maximum that you can get from that client? What's the maximum they're willing to pay? But you also need to know your bottom line. I firmly believe that if you are not negotiating with services, um, there could be a very large gap between that and your bottom line. So I personally go forward with my bottom line price every single time. I know what it is I'm willing to negotiate on the services, but with the exception of that little bit of room on there to, again, negotiating with the services or the apps or something, not just price, I'm very close to my bottom line. Because I don't want to sit there and have to worry about, negotiating. Or on the flip side, if somebody walks away, I don't want to sit there and say, oh, if only I'd brought down, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. If onlys are no good. So therefore, my bottom line price, and this is part of having that 24 hours to be able to build yourself and get yourself ready for that meeting so that you're comfortable that no matter what way it goes, whether they take it, whether they negotiate, whether they walk away, whether they laugh at you, that you are comfortable, that you are fine to walk away right at that point. So that's really important too.
Tanya, this
Yep.
might be this the question that I'm asking could be another workshop, but um, s- like right now we are going to sell a lot of apps and provide all those services like those account receivable was one of them that you covered in another workshop. So it's My challenge, right, one of my challenges right now is like, how do you explain the benefit of those apps as a value that you're offering them? Because apps are apps, but like, is a fixed price for it or whatever. But I spend so much time training myself, informing myself, keeping myself updated. So all that should be built into the value that I'm offering, because they can
Right.
come to me and I have the answer because I have my network, I have, all those things.
Right. So I build the price of the apps in based on my understanding of what the clients need. And again, how can I use it? So I don't, when I'm having the value conversation with clients and sitting down and talking to them about it, it's overwhelming. They don't care the tools. Like, think about it. If you were hiring somebody to come in and you know, I don't know, do a house in your room. You've got people come in to renovate, or sorry, a room in your house. So if they're coming in, you don't care what tools they're going to use. You don't care what kind of screws or, whatever. As long as it's up to code, as long as they're compliant with the code and they do the job right and properly and on time, that's all you care about. So I do the same thing with the apps. I don't inundate the clients with the apps. I say, here's what I understand your pain points are. Here's what I understand you need. Here's what I can do for you. And I'm just going to, I don't even, until we actually start to set them up, they have no idea what I'm using because it doesn't matter to them the
Yes,
tools that I'm using, right? So when we
correct.
start to set them up, and so therefore, I don't price the apps to make money. I price the
No,
apps
but the
based on my
value that
wholesale.
offer, yeah, the value you offer,
It does.
especially for those who, like they already your clients, and now you are either converting them into, bring them over to QBO and add a lot of apps. So it just like have a good conversation with them to convey the value that we are offering with going through all the changes and so on and so forth.
Right, right. Sorry, just give me one quick second here. Leanne, could you maybe try to sorry about that. Um, but yes, you definitely need to be able to price in the value that the apps offer. Absolutely. And, again, depending on what solution it is that you're using, sometimes I don't add extra because it's built in. Sometimes I do. And again, we're going to go through some actual examples on that. So you're really not going to make a lot of money on the apps, and it will increase your price, and the value really should be on the services you provide, but you should charge enough to cover the costs on your apps. Um, some apps give different price levels depending on the number of clients you've got with them. So I recommend that you use your base price as if you've only got one customer on that app. Otherwise, you could end up losing your discount. And again, you don't want to lose money on the apps. Some people do charge more for the apps. They do charge exactly what the apps are, and that is perfectly fine. If you're doing that and you're still getting the sales, go for it. My area, I definitely couldn't do that. That would price me out in my area, which is why I don't. But you want to make sure that you're at least covering your cost on it. And like I say, if you're in an area where it's got that flexibility, absolutely go for it. All the power to you, because that's definitely, there is definitely value in the apps. I mean, if you take a look and if you've got 30 clients on Receipt Bank has a, flat fee pricing on some of them. And I think one package works out to be like $15 a client. But if a client were to purchase that directly, it definitely is more. But that's, again, something that you need to work out as to whether you want to include that in or not. Maybe that's something you want to use for negotiation. Know what the price is and then just say to the client, if they really don't like that, just say, okay, you know what? I can drop you down to my wholesale on the apps, the wholesale cost. So you're getting a lot more value out of it, and you can do that. So that would be really the only negotiating on price, and only if you're doing something like that. But again, once you're, pricing more, you'll get to really know your clients, your area, what you can and can't do.
Just a quick
Um,
question, Tanya.
yeah,
I think you had a really good point when you said you don't really tell them what you're using at the beginning. So
yeah.
what do you do once they know, okay, HubDoc, and there's a client who likes detail and will go on the website and look at everything, and then they'll say, well, HubDoc is doing all the data entry for you. Why am I paying more? How would you address something like that? If a client would go into the website of the app that you're using and then say, well, this is pretty much doing all your work. But I guess there's where value pricing comes in, right?
Well, it is. So that's kind of a two-part answer to that. So on one side, I actually, most of my clients don't even care and don't want to get in there. I only have one that wants to get in there, and that's we've lowered the price because of that. Otherwise, as far as they're concerned, they either come in or I connect with them remotely. They sign in, set up their bank information. That's it, and they forward. They may be like they've got the email address to forward. They don't have sign-in information for HubDoc or Receipt Bank. I just don't give them that. They don't need it. It's just going to confuse things. They could go in and they could mess things up. So they don't have that. So I'm restricting their access on that. Receipt Bank and so it would be the same thing. So now the other side to that question, the other answer to that question would be if we have people so if they were to see, look, find a little bit about it, again, to keep them within compliance, we look at every single receipt. It might pull and extract some of the information, but you know what? Depending on the receipt, it could be month, day, year, day, month, year. We still have to go in and verify every single piece of information on there before it goes through. Then we need to verify and make sure that it got processed through at the same time. So that's where the value is, that we still need to look at it. And again, I don't. Now, Receipt Bank, we do let Receipt Bank push through some of the things, such as like, your TELUS bill, like your cell phone bill, your landline bill, your internet bill, like something that is going to be the exact same every single time, absolutely no question. But that's it. Otherwise, again, that's still less than 10% of the receipts. Otherwise, everything else I want to see. I want to see Amazon. Did they buy something personal? I want to see their gas. Did they stop and, grab a bag of chips or a bottle of water, right? So some people really automate the heck out of it. I don't because, again, I'm big on compliance. So that would be my rationale back to that client is no, I still need to look at every single receipt. It's just a medium for them to get me a digital copy of the receipt versus a paper copy.
True. Good
That's
point.
it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Um, Okay, and then just round the prices of the apps to the next dollar because we're, or 50 cents or whatever. Rounded numbers are more pleasing to the ear for clients for that. Now, before we move off the apps, Lillian, if I can just ask you, because I know that you definitely include like the cost of your apps in your pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had no problem with that in your area. The clients don't even question it because again, the same thing. You just here's the price. They don't
Yeah,
even like
so
that.
I don't really go into what apps that I'm using unless they
Right.
ask me. So I find out, like, if, I try to talk more about the benefits. So I use Receipt Bank um, because I am able, actually, before I approve it, I'm able to see what's on there. And I
Right.
just tell them, I do the expense management for you. I'll keep all the receipts. We have an app that does that. This way, if you ever were in an audit, we can go back and look at each individual ones. Plus, you don't have a shoebox of papers.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk to them in that way, like what it is that I'm doing, rather than that it's an app.
So same thing,
Um,
because I know that in your and I hope you don't mind me like aren't going to shoot me for bringing this stuff up, but like I know when we've gone there and gone through your pricing that you include, some of the other stuff that you really kind of use in running your business, but basically you take that price and spread it over the clients, right?
yes.
Like some of your online, like
So I
your
have like
storage
share
services.
file. Yeah, so
Yeah,
share file is my, for me to work with clients, that's my virtual cabinet. So I share that price amongst them all. My LastPass, my password protection, because for all of them, that's what I'm doing. I'm making sure that I'm being compliant with them and that all their passwords are going to be protected. So
right.
yes, they get a small percentage of that across the board. So I have that built in.
And there's never been any concerns with that. So in your area, then it's obviously something that's either accepted or you're just priced right with everything else, or you're priced too low.
Right. Well, actually, you and I had started to talk about this initially when I was pricing. I was getting everybody was signing on, and then I began to think, oh, I think I just priced myself too low. So with this, I did really start to really increase my prices, and I don't get anything anymore. I get about 50%. So now I know I'm about right, and
Nice.
I'm making some money too, which is
Well,
really nice.
and
Yeah.
that's exactly because if you've increased your price, you're getting 50%, so you're not getting everybody. And I think it's important, and that was a great point that you brought up. So thank you for that. That you're not getting everybody, but you're making more. So basically, you might be making the same, like for 2 clients that you might have made for 4. So you're only doing the work of 2, or you know,
Exactly.
or something. But yeah, you're definitely making, and so your average, if you were to look at an average hourly rate, has gone up because you're doing less work for less clients.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's all the
perfect.
matter of getting the right client, I guess.
Exactly. Right sizing, right client, right plan, right price.
And one
That's
thing
why I like
Tanya
that.
had said to me too was, as you start to use that, you will become more confident. And since you and I've worked, that's one of the things I definitely have become more confident. I'm confident about my pricing. So when a customer comes back to me and says, "Oh, I don't know," my response, which, I'm always polite, but my response is pretty confident. And, most of the times they're like, "Okay, I got you."
You look pretty confident right now.
Oh, well, thank you.
No, seriously. Like I remember like our very first meetings, and
I was
so
so quiet.
well done, well done.
Thank you. Tanya, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. But it's not, it's your inner you. It was there the whole time. I just helped you find it.
Why you brought it out in there.
It
Oh,
was deep down in there somewhere.
there we go. All right. Okay. So,
Tanya pulled it all out.
Yeah.
excuse me. Okay. So, moving on. So now, your accounts receivable payroll. Um, if you offer any of those packages, don't forget to include the cost of the app you'll be using for these tasks. So that ties a little bit into kind of, Rosia, what you were asking. Definitely, you should include the cost of the app as well as, your value um, for that. And again, I do show you how to do that. Variance. With true value pricing, some clients might value your services lower, possibly due to budgetary reasons, but in all other aspects, these clients would be a good fit for you. And alternatively, some clients might value your services higher and actually be able to afford to pay a bit more. So as you should take the client into account as well as the work, the apps, and the add-ons involved, this pricing module has used the middle point of the values as recommended by Ron Baker, which is the 75%. Therefore, in order to remain profitable, you do have leniency. So again, if you've got somebody who you really want to help out, you can, use it, bring them down, and this is built in where there's a variance plus and a variance minus, so that you can do that. You should also try, for every client that you do a minus variance, try to bring on a client with a positive variance, so that way it'll balance out at the end. Because if you end up bringing everybody on with minus variances, your profitability will be low. So just, kind of try to keep that in mind as you're making your decisions. And then using the variance boxes, which is in the worksheet, you'll enter the percentage that you want to add to the total in the variance plus. Again, we recommend up to 15%, but hey, that's pushes the price higher. So you can go as high as you feel that client, is willing to go. Should you wish to lower the price, enter the percentage in the variance minus box. Again, I recommend no more than 15%, because then you really start to drop your value. And then that'll total into the calculation, and the client won't be aware of what you did behind the scenes, even if they're watching you. But please, please, please do not quote with them watching you. Again, take the information, tell them you'll get back to them, set up an appointment for the next day, and then work that out yourself. Because in that way you can go back and forth and cover everything. Now, the instructions on this sheet, you're basically adding and filling in the blue areas. So the base rate up here should be to start with anyway, and you will find what your happy medium is just simply by working with it. Like as Leanne says, she figured it out that, she was pricing too low and went up and up and up until she was at a point where she was comfortable. Same thing. Our area, I know, that takes 40. So again, what this is this is basically my hourly rate. So it's $40 an hour. If I'm quoting in Toronto, I'm probably going to put that at like $60, $75 an hour to quote in Toronto, because I'm like 3 hours out of Toronto, little, 50,000 population city with a bunch of rural and farmers all around. So we can't afford quite as much. So they don't have as much value on my services as somebody in Toronto might be. So for me, it's just easier just to come in and just change that because I kind of already know where I can, like where my limit is for each price. But again, that's not my true hourly rate. That is before the surcharges. So just remember that. Any of the white fields can be customized with your software charges or software apps and charges and whatnot. So like Receipt Bank, this is the old Receipt Bank pricing. So you might just put in Receipt Bank or, like if we were using ShareFile because it's Lillian, so File, and she wants to charge, $5 per person on ShareFile, you can go in and customize any of this stuff. It's only the blue areas that actually count into the calculations. Here, so we're mostly Canadians here, but for Lillian or any Americans here watching this, these are just personal income taxes and our forms up here for the personal income tax. So let's say the client does want to have their income tax included, whether it be the personal or any of the business. I've kind of got those pricings here. Or if there's something extra that you want to put in, you can put that in here. If you put the annual price here, it'll pull into the monthly price over on this other side, and the monthly price will pull into the calculation.
What is that
You
do
can
not use?
those, yeah, the formulas are locked on those ones, unfortunately, right now. The person who did the coding for me, there was a problem with the formula in there, and I can't access them anymore. They've just kind of disappeared, so I can't get them to unlock it in the back end. So just don't use those ones, and then, of course, when the app does go online, there'll be tons of extra ones to use. So, but there's still plenty of extra ones over here to use that pull into the formula. Like you won't need all of them, definitely. And then you can edit your plan name. So, and then that will carry forward onto the main one. Okay, and that's about it for that sheet. So this sheet, this is where all the magic happens. So what you're going to do, and we're going to go over time, so I apologize in advance for this. If anybody has to hang up, I absolutely understand. Okay, so, and of course the whole thing will be recorded. You'll receive the recording afterwards. So on this client here then, so let's say I'm quoting somebody, and this is where kind of the balance sheet and everything. So I would just take out all of this to start with. So up here, if I were quoting a cleanup, I would take this part into example. So this here, you see it says 1 point for each. Points only count towards cleanup. So essentially, basically 1 point is equal to 1 hour's worth of work. So if you can think about that, you can then, once you get comfortable, you can then go and pretty much quote anything. So bank accounts, if you think about the old way, go way back to, a few years ago before any of this technology came in, before we had bank feeds, before any of that. How long did it take to reconcile a bank account? An average bank account, probably up to like an hour because you're going back and forth and there's, oh, did I find this? And oh, was there this? It may have taken half an hour. It may have taken 20 minutes. But, I go ahead and count in an hour for that. If somebody has a small savings account, I might not charge, an extra point for that savings account if I know I could do that in a couple of minutes. So if you're doing catch-up work, I might do that. One bank account, one credit card. They've got payroll I need to catch up on. There's sales tax we need to catch up and file. Do they want me to go in and clean up their payables, their receivables? Cash on hand. Do they do a lot of cash purchases that they're not doing through their credit cards or bank accounts? I really, really stressed all my clients not to do this because there's no way for us to know if they've actually given us all the relevant receipts or not. But if they do, do a lot like that, then I would go ahead and throw points in. and then the number of months requiring cleanup. So let's say somebody who's got 6 months of cleanup. I could pop over here, and here it is, 6 months of cleanup, $2,100. I would ask for at least 50% up front, and once that 50% is done, I would stop working, maybe halfway through, and keep going. With that, however, somebody might say, oh, $2,100, that sounds like a lot. If we actually divide that into the number of months, though, that's $350 a month for something that we've calculated, would take a couple of hours a month. They've got, again, payroll, sales tax to clean up, cash on hand bank accounts. But we also don't want to um, give that client incentives to fall behind again. So cleanup or rescue work, as somebody else called it, I can't remember who it was that called it rescue work, but I loved that. It definitely should be charged more and is more valuable because think about it. Sometimes you end up spending more time on the rescue work than just starting forward because you end up, digging in and finding, that there's issues that you didn't realize that there would be issues and, opening up a big other can of worms. And again, you don't want to give that client an incentive to fall behind again. This actually works nicely into the flexible payments. If I had somebody who I was quoting on this, I might say to them, okay, maybe pay me 50% up front and let's take the remainder, sign into a year contract. Let's take the remainder and divide it over the next, the next 12 months. This is where, again, that flexible payments come in. You might be able to work something that's a little better for their bank account to be able to do that. So that might make you being able to get that sale. Notice here, any of those points did not affect this price. They are counted only towards the cleanup work. So then when I come in to actually quote them, let's just say I've got a client who is not online, doesn't care anything about that. He just wants to do what he did with his old bookkeeper who's moved. The bookkeeper used to come to his place of business, pick up the receipts, drop them off. So we're going to count a point for that. Because what I would do is I would build his prices based on what he wants. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like Property Virgins. I don't know if that's even in the States, Lillian, but that's um, it's a TV show, and I think we kind of talked about this on our bootcamp call, our main bootcamp call the other day. But Property Virgins is a show where for some home buyers come in and they say, here's what I want. I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this. And it's very unrealistic. They say, but I want it for this price. So then what happens is the real estate agent goes and finds them exactly what they asked for, but it's very high out of their price range. So that's how he negotiates and gets them down. That's how I like to start off to negotiate with. I give one price exactly what they've asked for, one price with the negotiation of the services of what they really need, and then like a lower price of, okay, let's shave off a little more and maybe throw a little bit more into their plate. So that's sometimes kind of where I start. So let's say this client says, I want to
Tanya,
drop. Yep.
do you present all those prices all at the same time, or just do the what they want and then shave
Nope.
it off?
I would present them all at the same time. So this is part of what I would do within my 24 hours working with it, is I would figure out how I can work with this and present all three to them. The first one I'm going to always present is what they've asked for. I want
Mm-hmm.
to present that high one. If that in this case is the high one, give them what they've asked for. Now, if you've got somebody who's already in the cloud who isn't asking for anything unrealistic, I'm not going to use those three examples as something. I'm going to maybe put in what they've asked for as their middle one. And then, a higher one, throw some extras in, and then the lower one, maybe shave off something that they don't need just so that they can see the difference. But you usually want them in the middle as kind of where you want them. But you want
And
your
how
high.
do you determine, so you give them the price for what they ask for, and then how do you know which one to take off or shave off?
Well, and
Um,
that's, yep, I will show that in this. So right now, we're just starting again. They say, yep, I want my receipts picked up and dropped off. I don't want to connect to the bank feeds. I don't trust this technology, but we'll say, okay, let's say he's got one bank account, one credit card. His savings, I'm not going to count for that one because it's like, he just puts his HST stuff in it and his payroll liabilities in it. So I figure, okay, you know what? I'll give him a little bit of a break on that one. There's like 2 or 3 transactions a month, and I've been able to confirm that. And I figure, you know what, I can set that all up on bank rules. So that's fine. I won't count extra for that. Because again, if I'm pricing this also thinking that this is my bottom line. I don't want to lose somebody over 1 hour's worth of wages on something that I know I can completely automate that is that minuscule. 3 transactions a month has no impact on the price at all. He doesn't have a line of credit, doesn't use a lot. Let's say he does use cash on hand. He's got sales tax. I've got 1 point now just to show you. When I go over here, anything in there pulls into each of these 3 sections. Once I add into here, so the basic items included in all 3 packages. The standard items is only included in the top 2. So now let's say he says, okay, I am manual. I don't like any of these bank feeds. I don't want to, take pictures of the receipts because you're picking them up. Now I've got to scan the receipts. And let's say he gives me, up to roughly 100 receipts, in between 50 to 100 receipts a month. So Ricia, this is where it comes into, your transactional part of it comes into it. So I average basically 1 hour for 50 receipts. I know a lot of other accountants I've talked to are, roughly about the same. Some are like, 1 minute per receipt. Some are, minute and a half a receipt, somewhere about that. But, very similar. And so let's say that this is kind of what the clients asked for, and then I just kind of throw a bunch of premium stuff in here for the top, because the top package, if they're willing to pay for it, that's your Cadillac, right? If somebody wants a Cadillac, you just got a higher price just because it's a Cadillac. So I just kind of throw in one for everything. So then we go over here. What are we including? We're going to include essentials. Let's see, there is no payroll. We're quitting them without payroll on this one. I'm going to include Receipt Bank. I'm going to include HubDoc, and that would really be it for this guy. So when we pop over here to the sheet, now we see there's 3 prices, 3 differences. So the $413.50 is only taking into account these. So again, it's not taking into account all of the work. So basically, the middle price here is taking into, the gold package is taking into account all of the actual points that we've counted from the work. And this one here, Cadillac, just has the extras because it's a Cadillac plan. So $700 a month is probably going to sound like a lot for some guy who's got 1 bank account, 1 credit card, does some cash on hand stuff, and sales tax. So I'm going to use that. Actually, I would probably use that as my high price. I would probably just round up again and do 700. So then I'm going to go back in, and I'm already going to think about it, say, okay, before I get to him, how can I negotiate with services? Well, if he uses the app, because I know he's got a smartphone because I've seen him use it, and if he does that and I'm not scanning receipts, and we set up his entries, like setting up the entries, like HubDoc feed and the bank feed, we can take that off. So now when I pop back there, that's already dropped it down to like from 700 to 485. That's a big difference. So I might use that as a middle price. To go back in, how could I negotiate this even further? I could go in here and take out this cash on hand and say to the person, because he's giving me the same number of receipts regardless of what he's using, and I could maybe as a lower price take that out and say, okay, if you stop paying cash for everything, use only your bank account and your credit card, there's less for me to have to try to track. I'm going to give you the benefit, and that drops the price down to $415. So you're giving him 3 different options. You're negotiating strictly on the services. You haven't even touched anything else except for basically kind of giving him stuff. And really, you don't want him to do this stuff at the higher price anyway, because that's more work for you. So, but which is why you should, again, throw an extra premium surcharges. So maybe instead of the $700, I would, add 800 or something. You want to make it, if that's the case, if you're giving him the 3 prices and the top one is something you don't want to do, you want to make it ridiculously high. So that way, just in case he says yes, you're not regretting it, but be able to go in there and show that, you're asking for stuff you don't really need. If we use some of these tools that are at my disposal, we can bring this down for you. Same thing if you were to get into with the invoicing. You're going to, if you start to think an hour, so you could do the same thing for invoices. Anybody who I use, all of my clients, however, they either have their own invoices, that they're entering themselves. They take care of most of them take care of their AR, as well as the fact, or sorry, either the fact that or they're using a separate POS system, in which case we can pull the detailed receipts that we want. They're fine with not having the details integrate into QBO, so I just enter just a monthly summary. So I don't worry about charging extra for that because I'm just entering one statement, which would be set up as a recurring transaction, which I just change the numbers and that's it. But if somebody did want me to do something, again, as long as you think, this would be equivalent to 1 hour of work, not 1 hour of current work using your technology that's going to make it cheaper or faster. 1 hour of manual work, you can then pretty much quote anything. So, was there any questions? Did you want to see, did you have another example that you want me to put through?
No, this is really great. I'm gonna have to leave soon. I have a call at 11:15, so
Okay.
I'm gonna have to but I'll stay as long as I can.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay.
I think we lost Lillian.
Oh,
Yeah, she said
yeah,
she had
she
to
had to
go. She
go.
put in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
she had to
okay.
go. Okay, so it's just, yeah, I didn't see because it's on my other screen. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty much, the end of it. But, again, you can see that if you start to kind of think outside the box, and think ahead, okay, what can you do? How can you do this? What can you negotiate with? I also had another client, so I'll do one more example. Another client, it was a Chamber of Commerce. And they gave me what they wanted. They wanted desktop, they wanted all of this other stuff. And what we ended up with them is we gave them their lowest price of what they asked for, which was, I don't know, let's say, bank account, credit card, sales tax. They did have payroll. They did not want us to do the payroll. So they had the payroll that was done separate. They have their own AR system. So it was pretty basic with that. So I think we just included like this. So here, this would have been what my lowest price would have looked like, $270, $350. So that's what they wanted. That's what I did at their lowest price.
Which is your
They're,
basic price?
yeah, no, I wouldn't go below 300 anyway as a lower price. But that's kind of what I would have used as the lowest price. The
But you
second
don't show
price,
that to the client, right?
no, no, no. Again, this is just my using back and forth.
Right.
What I show them is just the 17 hats. So then I went in and I said, okay, let's solve some more of their pain points. They used Ceridian for their payroll simply because of the fact that there were um, they had to limit some of the people's access and they were in desktop. So then I said, okay, so now we're going to throw in here QBO Essentials with payroll because we can do that. We can customize the users. And then I think I threw in another hour because of training and helping them and whatever. So then here was their middle price. Then the top price, I knew for a fact that they had issues with their AR. So the top price, I then went back in here and I said, okay, now we're going to throw in their invoice Sherpa because they did not have anything collected. So then I'll go and throw in one more point. So that would have been their top price. So kind of that's how I customized their packages because their AR as a member through them, like I say, there were absolutely issues because they didn't know they used a completely separate system that didn't follow up. They didn't follow up when people were behind. So we could be 2 years behind. We wouldn't get a letter. We wouldn't get anything. So they would be able to get their money faster, get their cash flowing quicker. So therefore, that was definitely solving a pain point. So that's kind of how I customized with them on their 3. And I just used the worksheet just to kind of go back in and out, in and out, in and out
So in the
to be able to
payroll,
get
then
that.
you add the number of employees on the payroll on the worksheet on the payroll section.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Where was that here? It depends. So yes, if we've got first number of employees, yeah. So here's point per employee. So if they have 10 employees, then yes, you would add that in there if you're being charged, because obviously, again, you want to cover your cost. So if
Okay,
you're
but
being
that's not
charged,
actual for your time processing payroll. It's just strictly to cover your cost of WagePoint or whichever app you're using.
Exactly. Now, I wasn't
Okay.
actually processing their payroll. I was training them to do it. I still included an extra hour for support because we know that they're going to have payroll support issues.
Okay, so if you have a client that they just want to do the payroll within QuickBooks, you would not come and add points here per employee or the T4s. Is that where you add, like, yeah, how does that
So,
work?
okay. So this side here is if I'm doing their personal taxes. So if I'm doing their personal, not their
Oh,
employees, not running their T4s. So if
I
I'm doing their
see.
personal taxes and they had like, their whole
Sorry,
family, there was,
Tanya, I gotta go.
I
okay,
see.
So, but I have a, sorry for interrupting.
that's
But
okay.
I have a special request. Can we do another training for when you actually present it to the client? Like I like to see
Sure.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye,
All right.
Afsana.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so then Marcia, that's what I would use that side for, is again if I'm getting very detailed on that.
I see. Okay. So
Yeah,
just to prepare their payroll, where would you account for that time?
I would just throw another point in here. Again, it doesn't matter where.
Oh, I
Like you
see.
can, when you're starting, you can certainly have these, named appropriately, but otherwise, as long as you can relate 1 point to 1 hour or, whatnot, then that's where it's important. So I threw an extra point in here. If I thought, their payroll would take me 2 hours, I'd pop in 2 hours.
And that includes all your T4, all your year-end processing, your ROEs, everything.
Well, yeah, because if I'm not really processing, if I'm not really doing the day-to-day processing, that's exactly why I still went in and threw an hour because I know they're going to come to me for ROEs, they're going to come to me for
Yes.
T4s. There, exactly. So even though I wasn't dealing with the payroll, that's exactly why I added the first hour. If I'm going to actually process it, that's when I would add the second hour. And then
Perfect.
when I would explain to them, here's my price. I've determined exactly what it would take me for the year, and we've divided by 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank
Oh,
you.
oh, you're welcome. All right, let's pop back to the last 2 seconds of the presentation, and then we're
Yes.
done. And of course, it'll be recorded and sent out. Um, so the template that I've demonstrated today is available if you want to purchase it for $99.99. It does include a single lifetime license installation, and for $199, you actually get the template as well as another individual session with me. And I'm working on an online app that I'm hoping will be ready for launch by fall. And anybody who purchases the template is funding the cost of the app, so you automatically get a free lifetime subscription. So that'll just mean wherever there's internet, you can sign in and access it, and it'll be set up similar to that. And if you want more, check out my Bookkeepers Corner page on my website to subscribe to my blog and find future webinars and information on Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp program, which focuses on streamlining your bookkeeping workflows, logistics, as well as includes all of our contracts and templates. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you so
And
much,
then the
Sandra.
information. Thank you for staying till the end.
Oh, that's great. No problem. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Okay. Thanks so much. I'm sure we'll see you at a webinar shortly.
For sure. Bye-bye.
Thanks for seeing you. Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.